The massive meeting room fell silent as Kim Tae-ho closed his tablet. The sound echoed through the chamber like a gunshot. Around the huge circular table, dozens of alien beings stopped their talking and stared at him. Some had multiple eyes. Others glowed with strange lights, and a few looked like living crystals. All of them seemed confused. Kim Tae-ho stood up slowly. He was a tall man with graying hair and tired eyes. For 18 months, he had sat in this same chair, listening to the same arguments, making the same points over and over again. Today was different. Today he was done. "We're leaving," he said in a calm voice that carried across the room. The alien delegates shifted in their seats. Some made clicking sounds. Others whispered in languages that sounded like wind through metal. The Valdorian delegate, a being made of what looked like living crystal, flickered with confused colors. "You cannot simply walk away," said Chancellor Morthek of the hegemony. He was a large creature with 4 arms and skin that changed color when he was upset. Right now, his skin was turning a deep red. "The trade agreements are not finished. The border disputes still need solutions." Dr. Park So-min, who sat next to Kim Tae-ho, gathered her papers and stood up too. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and no patience for nonsense. "We've been talking for a year and a half," she said. "You want to talk for another year and a half? We're done talking." The aliens looked at each other with worry. For over a century, the Galactic Confederation had been the way things worked. Every species that wanted to trade, travel, or expand beyond their homeworlds had to join. They had to follow the rules, pay the fees, and most importantly, they had to negotiate everything through the Council. Humans were different from the start. When Earth made first contact 20 years ago, most aliens expected them to be grateful for the chance to join the galactic community. Instead, humans asked hard questions. They wanted to know why some species had more votes than others. They wondered why trade routes favored certain worlds. They questioned why new colonies took decades to approve. "Your species is young, Ambassador," Velthar of the Aquatic Collective had told them during their first meeting. "You must learn patience. The galaxy has worked this way for thousands of years. But humans didn't want to be patient. They wanted to explore, to build, to grow. When the Confederation said no to human colony ships, humans asked why. When they said human technology was too dangerous to share, humans asked for proof. When they offered humans junior membership with limited voting rights, humans laughed. Kim Tae-ho remembered that first year clearly. The excitement on Earth when the colony applications were submitted. The hope in every human settlement that their children might see the stars. Then came the delays, the committees, the reviews of reviews, the endless meetings about meetings. The Kepler system shows promise for human settlement, the initial report had said. However, Committee 7 must first evaluate the environmental impact. Then Committee 12 must assess the strategic implications. Committee 4 will review the cultural sensitivity issues. That was 3 years ago. Committee 7 was still waiting for data from Committee 12. Committee 12 was waiting for Committee 4 to define what cultural sensitivity meant. Committee 4 had decided to form a subcommittee to study the question. Meanwhile, humans had built their own telescopes and analyzed the Kepler system themselves. They knew exactly which planets could support life. They had designed ships that could get there. They had volunteers ready to go. All they needed was permission. Permission denied pending further study came the official response every few months. Captain Lee Dong-soo, who led the human security team, walked to the chamber door. He was a military man with scars on his hands and no love for politics. He had watched alien delegates spend 3 hours arguing about lunch break schedules, while human colony ships sat empty in orbital shipyards. The other human delegates stood up and followed him. Dr. Song Mi-kyung, who had designed faster-than-light engines that made alien technology look ancient, picked up her research files. Engineer Lim Da-eun, who had solved power problems that alien scientists said were impossible, rolled up her blueprints. One by one, the human team walked toward the exit. The alien delegates began talking all at once. Their translator devices created a chaos of overlapping voices, clicks, whistles, and electronic beeps. "You cannot leave without proper procedures," called out the hegemony chancellor. "There are protocols," insisted the Zenthari trade representative. Forms must be filed, added the Altarian delegate. Kim Tae-ho paused at the door and turned around. The alien delegates fell silent again, waiting for him to change his mind, to apologize, to ask for another committee to study their concerns. For 18 months we've offered you partnership, he said. We've shared our technology, our ideas, our friendship. We've asked for nothing more than the right to explore space that belongs to no one. You've given us meetings about meetings, studies about studies, committees about committees. He looked around the room at beings from dozens of worlds, species, that had traveled between the stars for centuries before humans even invented the wheel. We offered to share faster-than-light travel with you. You wanted to study it for 50 years first. We offered to help with your energy crisis. You said our solutions were too radical. We offered to join your trade networks as equal partners. You offered us junior membership with no voting rights. The crystal being Kickstal flickered with nervous lights. The galaxy requires order, structure. We cannot simply change everything because one species is impatient. Kim Tae-ho smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. You're right. You can't change. That's why we're leaving. Captain Lee Dong-soo opened the door, and the sound of the busy station corridor drifted into the quiet chamber. Humans talking, laughing, working, building something while aliens debated whether building was allowed. For the record, Lee Dong-soo said without looking back, we offered you the stars. You wanted to form a committee to discuss whether stars were safe. The door closed with a heavy thud that seemed to shake the entire station. For a moment, the alien delegates sat in stunned silence. Then the chaos began. Emergency communications to home worlds, urgent calls to military commanders, panicked messages to trade leaders. For the first time in galactic history, a species had simply walked away from the table. And for the first time, the remaining delegates wondered if maybe, just maybe, they had made a terrible mistake. Outside the chamber, Kim Tae-ho and his team walked toward their ship without looking back. They had work to do. Admiral Choi Hai-wan stood on the bridge of the human ship Sejong's Pride and watched the Confederation station grow smaller on the main screen. Around her, the crew worked quietly at their stations. No one seemed upset about leaving the negotiations. If anything, they looked relieved. Set course for Earth, she told the pilot. Best possible speed. Commander Yu Jin-woo approached with a datapad in his hands. He was young for his rank but had earned it during the border conflicts 3 years ago. Admiral, we're receiving communication requests from 17 different species. They all want to talk. Choi Hai-wan shook her head. Tell them we're done talking. If they want to make deals, they can send official proposals to Earth. The ship's computer system, which the crew called Dana, projected a hologram in the center of the bridge. The image showed Earth and its surrounding space. Dozens of human ships moved between planets, space stations, and construction sites. It looked busy and alive. Status report on current projects, the Admiral said. Dana's calm voice filled the bridge. Luna Research Station reports successful completion of the Alcubierre drive prototype test. Dr. Song Mi-kyung confirms faster-than-light travel without jump gates is now possible. Mars Industrial Complex has finished construction of the first independent colony ship. Titan Base reports completion of the new terraforming system. Commander Yu Jin-woo whistled softly. While the aliens were debating whether we could have permission to explore, we built our own way to get there. On the Confederation station they had just left, emergency meetings were starting in every delegation office. The Zenthari Trade Consortium was the first to understand the problem. Their economic advisor, an insect-like being with compound eyes, pulled up holographic charts showing trade data from the last 10 years. Look at this, he buzzed to his superior. 67% of our new technology came from joint projects with humans. 43% of our most profitable trade routes were suggested by human merchants. When was the last time we invented something ourselves? The hegemony military was having similar problems. General Cothran stared at battle simulation results with growing alarm. Every successful strategy we've used in the last 5 years came from human tactical advisors. They called it gaming or something like that. Said they learned it from entertainment programs. Back on the human ship, Dr. Song Mi-kyung appeared on screen from Luna Research Station. She was a brilliant physicist who had been working on faster-than-light travel since she was 20. The aliens had told her it was impossible. that their jump gate system was the only way to travel between stars quickly. She had proven them wrong. The test exceeded all expectations, she reported with a big smile. We can travel faster than their jump gates, and we don't need their permission to use space routes. The new drive uses principles they never discovered because they stopped looking for better ways to do things. Admiral Choi Haiwan nodded. How long until we can start using it for colony ships? The first ships will be ready in 3 months. We can have people living on new worlds while they're still debating whether to let us apply for permission. Meanwhile, the panic was spreading through the Confederation. Ambassador Velthar of the Aquatic Collective had called an emergency meeting with his homeworld leaders. They met in a large underwater chamber filled with blue-green light. The humans are not just leaving the talks, he explained through the water-filled communication system. They're leaving us behind completely. While we argued about procedures, they solved problems we couldn't even understand. The Supreme Current, leader of the collective, moved her tentacles in a pattern that showed deep concern. What does this mean for our trade agreements? Humans handle 38% of our interstellar shipping. They design our computer systems. They grow food for our colonies using methods we never learned. If they stop working with us, our economy will collapse within a year. Similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds. The Altarian Military Alliance discovered that their best weapons came from human engineering. The Crystalline Confederacy realized that their most beautiful art was inspired by human creativity. The gas giant collective found out that their atmospheric processors were based on human designs. Dr. Kang Sung-ho, director of the Titan Industrial Complex, was busy with more important things than alien panic. He stood in front of a massive construction site where robot workers were building humanity's first completely independent colony ship. It was bigger than anything the aliens had ever built, and it was designed to create everything a new colony would need. Progress report, he called out to engineer Lim Da-un, who was checking the ship's systems. Faster than scheduled, she replied with satisfaction. The new manufacturing systems can build everything from farming tools to spacesuits using raw materials from any planet. The colonists won't need to wait for supply ships from Earth. This was something the aliens had never achieved. Their colonies depended on constant support from homeworlds. It took them hundreds of years to make a colony truly independent. Human colonies would be self-sufficient from day one. Back on Earth, President Park Ji-hoon was meeting with his advisors in the Global Assembly building. Through the windows, they could see the lights of Seoul stretching to the horizon, and beyond that, the bright dots of orbital stations and ships. The alien reactions are exactly what we expected, reported Secretary Shin A-ri, who had been Earth's representative before Kim Tae-ho took over the negotiations. They're offering everything they refused to give us before. Full membership, equal voting rights, access to all trade routes. President Park Ji-hoon looked thoughtful. And what do you think we should do? I think it's too late, she replied. We're not the same humans who asked for permission 18 months ago. We don't need their jump gates anymore. We don't need their trade routes. We don't need their permission. The president nodded slowly. Then we continue with our own plans. On the Confederation station, the emergency session was getting more desperate by the hour. Chancellor Morthek of the hegemony was trying to maintain order, but the delegates were too frightened to listen to procedures. We must send a formal apology, insisted the Valdorian representative. Offer them everything they originally requested. It won't work, said Ambassador Kickstal, his crystal body flickering with worried colors. I've been studying human behavior. They don't just want what they asked for. They've moved beyond needing us at all. The Zephyrian Empire delegate, who had always been friendly with humans, stood up slowly. Maybe the question isn't how to get them back to the table. Maybe the question is whether we want to be left sitting at a table that doesn't matter anymore. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For 1,000 years, the Galactic Confederation had been the center of everything. Every important decision was made in these chambers. Every species wanted to join. Every trade deal was approved here. Now, for the first time, someone had decided they didn't need approval. Someone had decided to build their own future, and that someone was already succeeding beyond anything the Confederation had achieved in centuries. The age of asking permission was over. The age of human independence had begun. 6 months had passed since humans walked out of the Galactic Confederation negotiations, and the results were beyond anyone's imagination. Dr. Kang Sung-ho stood in the observation deck of Titan Industrial Complex and watched the launch of humanity's fifth colony ship. Unlike the slow generation ships that aliens used, these vessels could reach new worlds in weeks instead of decades. Launch sequence initiated, announced the computer. The massive ship, larger than most space stations, moved away from Titan with graceful power. Its destination was a planet in the Kepler system that the Confederation had been studying for 3 years. Humans would be living there before the alien committees finished their next meeting. Engineer Lim Da-un joined him at the window. Her latest project, an automated factory ship, followed close behind the colony vessel. The factory ship will start building infrastructure as soon as they arrive, she explained. By the time the colonists finish unpacking, they'll have power plants, communication arrays, and basic manufacturing ready. This was something aliens had never imagined. Their colonies took decades to become functional and centuries to become independent. Human colonies were designed to be completely self-sufficient from the moment they landed. Back on Earth, President Park Ji-hoon was addressing the Global Assembly. Representatives from every nation listened as he outlined humanity's achievements. In 6 months, we have established 12 new colonies, developed faster-than-light travel, and created technologies that make us completely independent of alien assistance, he said with pride. We are no longer asking for permission to explore the stars. We are claiming our destiny. The audience applauded, but not everyone on Earth was celebrating. Some people worried about making enemies of powerful alien species. Others feared that humans were moving too fast, taking too many risks. President Park Ji-hoon understood their concerns, but he also knew there was no going back. Meanwhile, the human colonies were not just surviving, but thriving in ways that amazed everyone. Dr. Seo Hyun-woo had developed a terraforming process that could turn dead planets into garden worlds in just 30 years instead of the 300 years alien methods required. His first test planet was already showing green continents where there had been only rock and sand. Captain Nam Yu-jin led exploration fleets that were mapping parts of the galaxy no alien had ever seen. Her ships were faster and more advanced than anything the Confederation possessed. More importantly, they weren't limited to approved trade routes or restricted space. They could go anywhere. We've discovered 17 new solar systems this month, she reported during a communication call with Earth. 3 have planets that could support human life. 2 have unusual mineral deposits that could be extremely valuable, and 1 has something the aliens definitely don't know about. The something she had found was a derelict alien city on a planet called Kepler 442b. It was clearly ancient, built by a species that had disappeared long before the current Confederation existed. The ruins contained technology that was more advanced than anything modern aliens possessed. But humans weren't just advancing in technology. Their culture was spreading through space in ways that surprised everyone. Artist Kim Bora had created sculptures that could only exist in zero gravity. They were beautiful, complex works of art that moved and changed shape using magnetic fields and light. Aliens who saw them were amazed by the creativity. Philosopher Jang Min-ho had written books about human ideas of individual freedom and personal responsibility. These concepts were strange to many alien species, who believed in rigid social structures and collective decision-making. But young aliens who read his books started asking uncomfortable questions about why their societies worked the way they did. The effects were being felt throughout Confederation space. The Zephyrian Empire, which had always been humanity's closest ally, was experiencing what their leaders called dangerous new thinking. Young Zephyrians were questioning why their society was organized around hereditary positions instead of merit and ability. The humans promote individuals based on what they can do, not who their parents were, said a young Zephyrian engineer named Kethmaran. Why don't we do the same? His superiors couldn't give him a good answer. The Crystalline Confederacy was facing similar problems. Their entire society was based on the idea that crystal beings were naturally superior to other forms of life. But human achievements were making this belief look ridiculous. How could they claim superiority when humans were accomplishing things they had never even attempted? Admiral Won Tae-young, who commanded humanity's rapidly growing exploration fleet, was receiving desperate communication attempts from Confederation leaders every day. They offered trade deals, technology exchanges, and military alliances. They promised full membership with equal voting rights. They even offered to make humans the senior partners in joint ventures. He shared these messages with Dr. Shin Airi, who had become Earth's Secretary of Interstellar Affairs. "They're offering us everything we originally wanted," he noted. "Full recognition, equal partnership, access to all their trade routes." Dr. Shin-Airi laughed as she read the proposals. "They still don't understand. We don't want their trade routes anymore. We've built better ones. We don't need their technology. Ours is more advanced. We don't want to be equal partners in their system. We've created a better system." The human colonial system was indeed better. Governor Bae Jong-min of New Busan Colony was proving this every day. His colony included not just humans but also aliens, who had chosen to leave Confederation space and join the human expansion. Zephyrians worked alongside humans in the terraforming projects. Crystalline beings contributed their knowledge of mineral extraction. Even some aquatic collective members had established underwater cities on the colony world's oceans. "We're not building an empire based on conquest," Governor Bae Jong-min explained to a delegation of curious aliens. "We're building a community based on contribution. It doesn't matter where you come from or what you look like. What matters is what you can do and how you choose to do it." This was a radical idea in galactic politics. The Confederation was based on species identity and hereditary privileges. Different alien species had different rights based on how long they had been members and how powerful they were. Humans had created something completely different, a society where individuals mattered more than their origins. The results were spectacular. Human colonies were attracting the best and brightest from every species. Young aliens who felt trapped by their traditional societies saw human space as a place where they could achieve their potential. Scientists, artists, engineers, and philosophers were leaving their homeworlds to join human projects. The Confederation's economy was beginning to collapse as their most talented citizens emigrated to human colonies. Their technological development was slowing down without human input. Most seriously, their younger member species were starting to rebel, inspired by humanity's example of independence. The Altarian Military Alliance discovered that their most effective officers were requesting transfers to human space. The Zinthari Trade Consortium found that their best merchants were abandoning traditional trade routes to work with human companies. The gas giant collective realized that their atmospheric engineers were leaving to join human terraforming projects. "We're losing a generation," reported Ambassador Velthar to his homeworld leaders. "Our young people see what humans have accomplished and they want to be part of it. They don't want to spend their lives waiting for committee approvals and following ancient traditions that no longer make sense." Dr. Yoon Jae-sung of the Arcturus Research Collective was working with alien scientists who had joined human projects. Their combined research was producing breakthroughs that benefited everyone. They had developed new medical treatments that worked across species lines. They had created communication systems that allowed perfect translation between any languages. They had designed space habitats that could support multiple forms of life simultaneously. "This is what cooperation should look like," Dr. Yoon Jae-sung explained to a group of visiting researchers. "Not committees and bureaucracy, but people working together because they want to solve problems and create something better." The galaxy was changing, and the Confederation was being left behind. Species that had been allies for centuries were questioning their relationships. Trade agreements that had lasted for millennia were being abandoned. The careful balance of power that had maintained galactic stability was falling apart. And at the center of it all were humans, building something new among the stars while their former negotiating partners watched helplessly from their meeting rooms and committees. The future belonged to those who were brave enough to reach for it, not to those who spent their time debating whether reaching was allowed. The crisis reached its breaking point on a Tuesday morning when the Zephyrian Empire's most respected diplomat, Ambassador Keth Moran, stood before the Galactic Confederation Council and delivered words that would shake the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire formally requests to withdraw from the Galactic Confederation and join the human sphere of independent worlds, he announced in a clear, steady voice. The silence that followed was deafening. Chancellor Morthek of the hegemony turned several shades of red before managing to speak. That is impossible. The Zephyrian Empire has been a founding member of this confederation for over 800 years. Ambassador Keth Moran nodded respectfully. And in those 800 years we have watched our civilization stagnate, while we followed rules designed to prevent change rather than encourage growth. In the past year, We have watched our human friends accomplish more than we have achieved in the past century. He gestured to a holographic display that showed comparative data.
Human colonies are producing food, energy, and manufactured goods at rates we never thought possible.
Their terraforming projects are turning dead worlds into gardens in decades, not centuries. Their research stations are making scientific discoveries every month that our institutions haven't matched in years. The crystal being Kixtal flickered with agitated colors. Order must be maintained. Structure must be preserved. We cannot allow every species to simply abandon the system that has kept peace in the galaxy. What peace? Kethmaran asked pointedly. The hegemony and the Crystalline Confederacy have been fighting border disputes for 300 years because our committee system is too slow to resolve anything. The trade wars between the Xanthari and the Gas Giant Collective have been going on for decades because we debate every decision to death. Meanwhile, humans and their allies have settled their differences and moved forward. Admiral Wan Tae-young received the news of the Zephyrian decision while commanding his exploration fleet in the Proxima system. His ships had just discovered another habitable world, their 43rd such discovery since leaving Confederation space. Unlike the aliens who took years to properly survey new worlds, human ships could complete full planetary analysis in weeks. "Sir, we're receiving urgent communications from the Confederation," reported his communications officer. "They want to schedule immediate negotiations." Wan Tae-young looked at the beautiful blue and green planet rotating slowly on his main screen. In 6 months there would be human cities on its surface. In a year it would be a thriving colony. "Tell them we're busy building the future," he said. "If they want to talk, they can send their proposals through proper diplomatic channels." The proper diplomatic channels led to Dr. Shin A-ri, who had become quite busy lately. Her office on Earth was receiving dozens of communications daily from desperate Confederation leaders. They were offering trade deals that would have seemed impossible 2 years ago. Full technology sharing agreements, joint military alliances, even offers to restructure the Confederation government to give humans equal leadership roles. "Look at this," she said to her assistant while reviewing the latest proposals. "The hegemony is offering us their most advanced manufacturing technology. The Crystalline Confederacy wants to share their quantum communication systems. The Aquatic Collective is proposing joint exploration missions with humans as senior partners." Her assistant, a young diplomat named Park Kyung-ho, shook his head in amazement. "A year ago, they told us we were too inexperienced to handle their basic trade protocols." Dr. Shin A-ri smiled grimly. "A year ago, we needed their approval to visit systems they had already explored. Now we're discovering new worlds faster than they can update their star charts." The human colonial success was indeed remarkable. Governor Bae Jong-min of New Busan Colony had just welcomed the colony's 1 millionth resident, a mix of humans and aliens who had chosen human leadership over Confederation bureaucracy. The colony's agricultural systems were producing surplus food that fed populations on 12 other worlds. Their manufacturing facilities were building advanced technology that other species couldn't create on their own. "We're not just surviving out here," he explained to a visiting news crew from Earth. "We're thriving in ways that would have been impossible under Confederation rules. When we need to make a decision, we make it. When we see a problem, we solve it. When we find an opportunity, we take it." The contrast with Confederation space was becoming more obvious every day. The Xanthari Trade Consortium had just announced that their economy had contracted for the 3rd straight quarter. The Altarian military alliance was facing recruitment problems as their best officers requested transfers to human space. The Gas Giant Collective was struggling with energy shortages that human technology could solve easily, but they couldn't access it through official channels. Captain Hwang So-young, now an admiral commanding the integrated defense fleet of 37 human and allied worlds, was monitoring the growing instability in Confederation space. Her ships were more advanced than anything the aliens possessed, but she wasn't interested in conquest. She was interested in protection. Intelligence reports show increasing social unrest on 14 Confederation worlds, she reported to Earth during her weekly briefing. Young citizens are demanding reforms that their governments can't or won't provide. Several species are experiencing brain drain as their most talented individuals emigrate to human colonies. The brain drain was devastating the Confederation. Dr. Yoon, Jae Sung of the Arcturus Research Collective was working. With refugee scientists from 7 different species, they had fled their homeworlds not because of persecution, but because of frustration. They wanted to conduct research that their traditional societies considered too radical or too fast. "We're not stealing their scientists," Dr. Yoon Jae-sung explained to concerned Earth officials. "We're providing opportunities for beings who want to contribute to progress instead of maintaining status quo." When a crystalline physicist wants to study quantum mechanics beyond what her people consider safe, where else can she go? When a Zephyrian engineer wants to design faster ships than his people think are necessary, who else will support his work? The results of this scientific cooperation were revolutionary. Joint human-alien research teams had developed medical treatments that extended lifespans across species. They had created energy systems that were cleaner and more efficient than anything previously known. They had designed transportation networks that connected dozens of worlds without relying on the Confederation's expensive and slow jump gate system. But perhaps most importantly, they had proven that different species could work together as equals, without needing a massive bureaucracy to manage every interaction. Human space was becoming a model of what interstellar cooperation could achieve when it was based on mutual respect rather than hierarchical control. The Confederation's response was panic mixed with anger. Emergency sessions were called daily. Military leaders spoke of human expansion as if it were an invasion, ignoring the fact that humans were settling previously unclaimed worlds and accepting willing immigrants rather than conquering existing populations. "They are destabilizing the established order," declared General Cawthron of the hegemony military. "Their rapid expansion threatens the careful balance that has maintained peace for centuries." Ambassador Velthar of the Aquatic Collective disagreed. "The balance you speak of has maintained stagnation, not peace. We have had border conflicts, trade wars, and social unrest for those same centuries. The humans have brought more stability to their region of space in 1 year than we have achieved in decades." The argument represented a fundamental split that was developing within the Confederation. Older, more traditional leaders wanted to maintain the existing system and somehow force humans to return to negotiations. Younger, more progressive voices were beginning to suggest that maybe the humans had the right idea about doing things differently. Prime Coordinator Oh Min-suk, who had become humanity's unofficial spokesman for interstellar affairs, addressed this split during a public broadcast that was received throughout the galaxy. "We never wanted to destroy your Confederation," he said calmly. "We simply wanted the freedom to grow, to explore, to become what we're capable of becoming. You offered us committees and restrictions. We chose progress and opportunity. Our door is always open to those who share our vision of what the galaxy can become." The broadcast was watched by billions of beings across hundreds of worlds. For many of them, it was the first time they had heard someone speak of the galaxy's future in terms of possibility rather than limitation. The response was immediate and widespread. Within days, 3 more species formally requested to join the human sphere. Dozens of colonial governments petitioned for independence from their home worlds. Revolutionary movements emerged on Confederation worlds, demanding reforms that would make their societies more like the human model. The galaxy was changing whether the Confederation wanted it to or not. The only question remaining was whether the old guard would adapt to the new reality or be swept away by it. 2 years after humanity had walked away from the negotiating table, Director Lee Soo-jin of the Human Colonial Coordination Council stood in the observation lounge of New Seoul Station and watched history being made. Below her, representatives from the remaining Galactic Confederation members were arriving for what everyone knew would be the most important diplomatic meeting in galactic history. New Seoul Station was humanity's crown jewel, a massive space habitat that housed 3 million beings from 47 different species. It orbited a star that hadn't even been on Confederation maps 2 years ago, in a region of space that was now the thriving heart of what people called the human sphere. The station itself was a testament to what cooperation could achieve. Human engineering had created the basic structure, but Zephyrian artists had designed the beautiful gardens that filled the habitat rings. Crystalline beings had contributed quantum communication systems that connected the station to hundreds of worlds instantly. Aquatic species had created underwater districts that were marvels of beauty and function. "They're all here," reported Captain Hwang So-young from the station's command center. She now held the rank of admiral and commanded a defense fleet that protected 63 worlds. Chancellor Morthek representing what's left of the hegemony. Kixtel speaking for the Crystalline Confederacy. Even Ambassador Velthar came personally from the Aquatic Collective. Director Li Su-jin nodded thoughtfully. The delegation that had arrived was much smaller than the massive Confederation Council that had once ruled the galaxy. Many species had already joined the human sphere, or formed their own independent alliances inspired by the human model. The beings arriving today represented the core of the old system, the species that had benefited most from the traditional way of doing things. What do they want? She asked, though she already knew the answer. The same thing they've wanted for the past year, Admiral Huang So-young replied. Back in. They want to join our alliance system, but they want to do it as senior partners with special privileges. That was the problem. The old Confederation members still thought in terms of hierarchy and special status. They couldn't understand that the human sphere worked precisely because it didn't have those distinctions. Every world, every species, every individual was valued based on what they contributed, not on their history or their origin. Dr. Yoon Jae-sung of the Arcturus Research Collective had tried to explain this to visiting Confederation scientists. We don't have junior and senior partners, he had told them. We have partners. The crystalline researcher who discovers a new element is celebrated the same way as the human engineer, who designs a better engine. The Zephyrian artist who creates beautiful music gets the same resources as the aquatic philosopher who writes inspiring books. This concept was revolutionary to species that had spent centuries organizing themselves into rigid social structures. But it worked. The human sphere was producing innovations, art, literature, and technology at rates that amazed everyone, including humans themselves. Ambassador Kim Tae-ho, the same man who had walked out of the negotiations 2 years ago, now served as humanity's primary representative to the new Galactic Assembly. The assembly was smaller than the old Confederation Council, more efficient and notably different in its design. Instead of seating arrangements that emphasized hierarchy, every representative sat at the same level in a circle that had no head position. We're ready to begin, he announced, as the former Confederation leaders took their seats. They looked uncomfortable in the egalitarian setting, clearly unsure of protocol when there was no obvious senior position to defer to. Chancellor Morthek of the hegemony spoke first, his skin shifting through nervous colors. We may have been too hasty in our previous assessments of human proposals, he began carefully. The translator struggled with concepts that the hegemony language had no words for. Concepts like admitting mistakes and asking for help. Kixtal, the crystalline being, flickered with what humans had learned were colors of humility. We have observed your achievements, she said. Your colonies prosper. Your technology advances. Your people seem content. We wish to understand how this is possible. Ambassador Velthar of the Aquatic Collective was more direct. Our economies are failing. Our young people emigrate to your space. Our governments face revolution. We need your help. Prime Coordinator. Oh Min-suk, who had become the human sphere's most effective diplomat, listened patiently to their requests. The aliens wanted technology-sharing agreements, but only for themselves. They wanted access to human trade routes, but with special privileges. They wanted to join the human sphere, but as founding members with superior status. I think you still don't understand what we've built here, Oh Min-suk said gently. We didn't create another hierarchy with humans at the top. We created something completely different. There are no superior or inferior members. There are no special privileges based on when you joined or where you came from. He gestured to the viewing screens that showed New Sol Station's busy corridors. Humans worked alongside Zephyrians on engineering projects. Crystalline beings collaborated with aquatic species on artistic endeavors. Children from a dozen different worlds played together in the station's parks, speaking a mixture of languages that had become the common tongue of human space. Look around you, Oh Min-suk continued. Every being you see chose to be here. They weren't assigned by committees or born into positions. They came because they wanted to contribute to something bigger than themselves. The concept was still difficult for the former Confederation members to grasp. They had spent centuries thinking in terms of species identity and hereditary rights. The idea of a society based purely on individual merit and voluntary cooperation seemed impossible to them, but the results were undeniable. The human sphere now included 87 worlds with a combined population of 12 billion beings. Their economy was growing faster than any in galactic history. Their scientific research was producing breakthroughs that benefited everyone. Their cultural achievements were inspiring art and literature across the known galaxy. Most importantly, they were happy. Survey after survey showed that beings living in human space reported higher satisfaction with their lives than those in traditional societies. They had opportunities to advance based on their abilities. They could move freely between worlds. They could pursue their interests without waiting for committee approval. Dr. Seo-hyun Woo had just completed his latest terraforming project, turning a dead rock into a world of forests and oceans in just 18 months. Captain Nam Yoo-jin's exploration fleets had discovered over 200 new worlds, many with resources and phenomena that could benefit the entire galaxy. Artist Kim Bora's gravity sculptures had inspired a new form of expression that beings throughout space were adopting. "We're not trying to rule the galaxy," Ambassador Kim Tae-ho explained to the delegation. "We're trying to show what's possible when people are free to reach their potential. We never wanted to replace your confederation. We just wanted the freedom to build something better." The former confederation members were struggling with this reality. They had expected humans to create another empire, another hierarchy that they could either join as subordinates or resist as enemies. Instead, humans had created something that made their entire worldview obsolete. "But there must be structure," insisted Chancellor Morthek. "There must be order. Someone must be in charge." "Why?" asked Governor Bae Jong-min, who was participating in the meeting from his colony world. "Our worlds function perfectly well with collaborative leadership. Our projects succeed because people work together voluntarily, not because someone forces them to cooperate." The answer was simple but revolutionary. The human sphere worked because it was based on trust and mutual benefit, rather than control and hierarchy. People contributed because they wanted to, because they benefited from the success of the whole system. There were no unwilling subjects, no oppressed minorities, no species whose needs were ignored for the benefit of others. The meeting continued for hours, with the former Confederation leaders slowly beginning to understand what they would need to change about themselves to join the new galactic community. It wouldn't be easy. They would have to abandon centuries of tradition. They would have to give up the privileged positions that their species had enjoyed. They would have to learn to work as equals with beings they had once considered inferior. But the alternative was clear. The galaxy was moving forward with or without them. Young beings from their own worlds were emigrating to human space in massive numbers. Their economies were stagnating while the human sphere prospered. Their societies faced revolution from citizens who wanted the freedoms that human space provided. "We're willing to learn," Ambassador Velthar finally admitted, "but it will take time. Our people have lived with the old ways for centuries. Change will not come easily." Prime Coordinator Oh Min-suk smiled warmly. "We understand. We didn't change overnight either. But the first step is the hardest, and you've already taken it by coming here." Outside the meeting room, the business of the human sphere continued. Scientists collaborated on new research projects. Engineers designed better terraforming equipment.